Well, it's like what we did last week, but it's always fun to get going on a game week, and starts today and meetings and walkthrough, and obviously need to have and look forward to a good week of preparation.
Paul, I think when you came back from Pittsburgh, Nate Stanley was a kid you really liked coming out of high school. You guys have had some success kind of limiting his big plays, but what do you like about what he's been able to do since he's taken over there at Iowa?
Yeah, I mean, Nate's a heck of a player. In the time when you're recruiting him, enjoyed getting to know him and his family. And, he competes, and he's obviously very talented and has, I think, a real strong command of the game. Not just what they do offensively, what defenses do, and also has good weapons around him. And I think he uses them well and understands not just what they've got to do offensively to win, but kind of their whole. He gets football, and like I said, I think the way he competes and his toughness, he's a really good player. Really good player.
Well, do you believe that you've gotten consistent enough offensive line play the last couple games? And if not, what specifically have you identified with that group that you think needs to be better, especially against a team as good defensively as Iowa?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that Iowa's a really good defense, and it's interesting when you go against good defenses. You can't say, well, they're just the same Iowa defense, right? I mean, it's every year it's not the same, but it's a credit to them. The results are very effective, and you can't take any part of our team, whether it's the O-line or D-line or receivers, and say, the last couple games haven't gone like we want. Say, are we getting the production out of it? We always are going to want more. And you know what? On the games where we won, we said, we can get better here. And so, I think hard to answer that question in the sense that, of course, there's things that we've got to do to get better, each individual, each group, each unit, and as a team.
Getting back to Iowa's defense, they did have a lot of change up front. I think lost all 4 starters, and Epinesa was the guy everybody thought would be the player, but it appears that they're getting productivity across the board.
Right.
Is this completely different where against Ohio State you're worried about Chase Young and others, whereas this one it's like you can't really pick on one guy to look at?
Yeah, I mean, it's each week's different, and anytime you're playing in the Big Ten, you're going to face really good players, and I think that you've got individuals that you know about because you see them on film a lot, and some of them you've seen over time. Not much different than we've had guys that played a lot of football, but they technically weren't the starter. But if you go back and watch last year's tape, you're seeing a lot of the same guys. A couple go back more than that. So I think there's familiarity with it. It is impressive though, what they're getting. They're getting really a lot of production out of a lot of guys. It seems like when you're watching the film, and I think that's a good sign of good players and good coaching and them knowing and understanding the scheme. But that you still got to play the scheme, and they do that well.
Well, when you get a bye week, you get the chance to pause and maybe reflect on. Look at film a second or third time. What are you seeing with your offense after you looked at, especially the way it played in recent games?
Right. I mean, there's no question that's one of the things I personally enjoy about the bye week is chance to go back and watch it, and maybe you're watching it with a little bit different eyes too because you're just what's the big picture, and there's no doubt when you can break it down a number of different ways. And looking at it, and certainly the last couple are a part of that, not necessarily the whole story, but you look at it and say, okay, are we? I think you first thing as a coach you're looking at is what we're asking. Is it fair? Is it right? Does it fit who we're asking to do that? And then you're always going to check are we? If you're talking about running the ball, are you running the ball into unfavorable numbers, or your angles not right, or your doubles? So you try to take a look at that, and I think out of it you find there's probably a little bit of all those that go, okay, how can we get better, right? It is in what we're asking a person or position group to do. Another part is, are we doing, you take a look, are we doing too much? Are we not doing enough? You try to assess that. And so I think that, certainly the last, and it's really not just the last couple, there's been a couple games where we've not been able to consistently run the football. And so I think that there's some things you can do schematically to help that. I think there's some things that you can do technically. It's what's kind of fun about it is we all got to own it. Coaches got to own it, players got to own it, and I think there are some areas that we can take some steps forward. And then it's are you balanced? Are you able to you can take the same thing and you do the same thing with the passing game. Are we really threatening the field enough? Are we pushing down the field? Are we hitting it, right, left, deep, middle, short, all those. I think there's areas you could pick it and say, okay, we can get a little better there.
With your deep receiving core, are you playing three wides more often, and is that having any impact on your running game?
It's when you take a look at kind of if you just took the numbers, last year that was our number one personnel group. This year it is as well. But I think that, some of it has to have some impact. We're in it. People know it. I'd say 5 years ago when we were in it, different because we weren't going to be in it much. It was more of a passing type situation. And here we are trying to run the ball a little bit more out of it.
Paul, have you been able to identify a reason we've seen more missed tackles in the last couple of weeks? Is it a fatigue thing maybe getting later in the season or just missed techniques on those type of plays?
It can be that, and it can be really good players, right? It's all those, it's probably, and it depends at different times. If you say fatigue, you could say that maybe late in a game, or late in a drive possibly. It's never as clean as just one thing typically when you look at it.
Well, I know you only use them for a handful of plays, but Crookshank out of that Wildcat, did you get enough of that to be encouraged that you can keep it in the game plan, whether it's this week or sometime down the road?
Yeah, I think you end up with three. We're 1 for 3 on it, and one was a big. We were second and long, and we were able to get something out of it, and certainly I think he's a guy that can add some value to the offense.
And then what challenges does it pose offensively when we're playing against a defense that a lot of talk about the front line, but also that secondary, the cash defense has had a lot of effectiveness lately?
Yeah, it's a really good defense. I'm impressed with the players that they've got back there, and I think they play well off of each other. It seldom any of these, whether it's offense or defense, it takes all 11, and when you're strong at one, it kind of plays to the strength of another, and I think the strength of their defense is all 11 playing together, and they do a good job, and they have for a number of years. They're coordinated. They don't give you stuff.
Paul, I think after the Ohio State game, you talked about that Ohio State went heavy against some of your personnel groupings, and you said there's a way to chase them out of that. I'm guessing one way is to attack down the field. Did their pass rush and how quickly they got to Jack take away some things either you had planned or some counter moves?
It affects it, certainly.
What have you seen from Faion Hicks throughout this season? It seems like there's just more and more trust each week with him, kind of taking out the other team's number one receiver.
Yeah, no, Faion's been fun to be around, and none of us have played perfectly, but I think that he's done a great job of. I think like any player as they grow and mature, he's confident in what he's doing, the techniques that he's using and being asked to use, and then I think that there's a point in everyone's career where they start truly playing the game. They're not thinking it as much. I think he's at that point where he's playing it, and it's been fun to see his growth, and obviously, we lean on him a ton.
Paul, did the bye week kind of serve as a natural exhale for the team, coming off 2 losses, but they get a week to look ahead and realize there's still so much of the season left?
I think that any time that you get a change in the schedule, there's a chance to, to pause. We talk about doing that as coaches, and you want them to do that as players. Take a look at where you've been. What are the lessons you can learn? How do you apply it going forward? Certainly this point in the year, just the fact make sure they get a little bit more healed up and rested. All those are to take advantage of the bye. You have to do all those things, and I think that we have.
We haven't had a chance to talk to you since the legislation was introduced, but what are your thoughts on the pay for likeness bill that got introduced last week?
Yeah, I mean, certainly aware of it, and the one thing I've always appreciated, and I think it starts with Coach Alvarez, but whatever is going to happen, if there's a way that we can, we'll always do it within the rules, but if we can do it, and if it's better for our players, all student athletes, then we're all in. And Chryst McIntosh, our group, you're trying to get ahead of it, right? And you're trying to figure out I think you're too waiting to see what all does it mean, so you're aware of it, but fortunately, I also get to just focus in on the season. But it's certainly it's there, it's happening, and I don't know that we all know exactly what it's going to look like, but all these things, you got to get ahead of it, and that's where our administration's been tremendous that way. And kind of, this talk has been, I think it's a lot more public, and there's been, decisions, and I don't know that it's exactly, we don't know what it's going to look like, but, our administration it's been a conversation and trying to plan for a number of years, really. So I think it's a step, and I'm confident that our administration will be ahead of it.
I know there's a lot of depth at cornerback, but what have you seen from Samar Melvin, for that matter, where I know he played against Ohio State, and how has he progressed from, he didn't enroll early, so he didn't take advantage of spring practices, but how has he progressed to the point of putting him out on the field against an Ohio State?
Yeah, I think just that speaks to that he has progressed and to where you can trust him and knows what he's doing, and kind of like we were talking about, with Fayon, there's still growth to be had. But I love the way that he approaches every day, and it doesn't matter, when he was on scout team, when he was there, he's gonna compete, and he's gonna try to learn. Although I've really liked the way that he's handled his freshman year.
And then a lot of implications with Big Ten West with this game. Is this something that you embrace as a team, or is it something that you kind of just try to block out the pressure there?
I think that, there's always, we know, that you get to play this season. And like a game, it's not till the end that everything's kind of, this is what happened. And you're in the middle of it now. We had a chance to catch our breath, but it's how do you take advantage of each week? And I think that's been the belief, I've had the whole time. And so I think that we know, right, everything has a action, reaction to it, but you focus on the things you can control. We had a good message today, be where your feet are. And our feet are right here in the Iowa week, and that's a big deal. It's a big game. It's a great historic rivalry game. You got a ton of respect for their program. It's a big deal, and so why not try to make the most of that opportunity?